Welcome to GM Tips. GM Rick here coming at you. Sorry it's been so long since I put a few up. I've just been crazy busy, and I know you guys know how it goes. Unfortunately, some days you plan to do it every week and yeah, doesn't happen. So most likely I'm going to move back to 1 to 2 times a month, and I know you guys would love to see more sometimes, and I wish I could present more, but unfortunately, just with scheduling and everything else I got going on, fortunately, I got a lot going on in a good way. My regular group is really kicked up. I'm helping out on a conversion with a Kickstarter, which is kind of fun, from D&D to 5e, which I'm having a great time doing the conversion, and I look forward to many more of them. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time with that, as well as other ones that may come up around it. Getting a little freelancing experience under my belt. So with that and with other things with work and travel and um, maybe helping out a little bit with PFS, Pathfinder Society, and GMing, it's going to suck a lot of my time. And I'll still put things out here. Don't fret. Things will still occur. Not that you guys really care, right? um, all right. So today I want to hit the topic on how to use and create traps, pitfalls, types of things in terrain, challenges, other kinds of obstacles that may not always be a monster or a dungeon, to put into your character's way in a campaign to really challenge them in achieving their goal. And I think, a lot gets lost on this because we focus a lot on GMs of let's go from the tavern to the dungeon. Let's go from the tavern to the main boss NPC we want the players to talk with. And or let's just run around the city like willy-nilly and let them do everything, which is fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not a fun thing to do. And not worry about challenging them along the way that much, other than maybe a random encounter here or there. You don't always have to use encounters to challenge your players. And traps don't always have to be in dungeons. It depends on how you look at a trap. Now, again, I'm going to today flavor this mostly for fantasy, though you can adapt things like that if you think about it towards a sci-fi or a modern or a superhero campaign, because all this stuff can be adapted to modern day traps. So keep that in mind as you're watching this, that these are things that think about, just pitfalls and challenges you can give your players. Um, for instance, sci-fi meteor swarms, where meteors come in uh, a situation, or radiation bombardment, or it could be going into an asteroid field or in a debris field. There are all kinds of challenges that you can throw at your players when you look at those type of things. I think the first thing you want to do when you map out your campaign session, and I do recommend this every week, when you're getting ready for your campaign, spend about 3 to 5 hours really thinking it out. If you already don't have it written out, then think around it. And even if you do, spend the time and really think it out and think, okay, what have the players been experiencing? Are they having fun? Is it drawing enough of their attention and challenge? Am I using and utilizing all the skills in the party and the different types of classes to really make the player engage? I can tell you, for instance, with one of my players, he's gotten away from his diplomacy and he loved it and was one of the guys that started in my campaign. So I'm going to re-add some more diplomatic situations for him. Now, I did that because one of our players who likes to fight wasn't getting enough fighting. So there's a balance in there that you have to look at with your players. Not every player wants to run in there and hack slash monsters. I mean, let's be honest, it gets old after a while. Certain player types love it and they thrive on it. Others, they want other challenges. So what are some of the challenges you can look at? Well, number one, traps. Traps can be many things, okay? It can be a mechanical trap that is set up to trip up the players and cause damage or cause entrapment. So, say the party is walking down a dark alley to try to follow one of their informants that they're trying to get in touch with. They're walking down there, but they're not keeping their eyes out with their perception. Now, one thing I would recommend in this case, and I tell my players to do it almost every session, roll your perception for the day. And what does that mean? It means when I say roll for the day, and I'm writing it down because that's a good thing for me to remember at all times, roll your perception for the day. So that means anything where I'm not asking you actively or you're telling me that I'm going to make perception checks, this is your passive perception. And you'll hear the term used a lot. Passive perception just means if they're not actively looking for something, this is their ability to discern something is not right. So have them roll their passive perceptions. It saves many a party. Now, it doesn't always save everyone. So say your rogue in your party or investigator or whatever class is your trap finder, okay, or your perception machine. So it could be a ranger, has a place in the party that's the back of the party. Well, the rest of the party rolls those passive saves, but they aren't so good. So now these are leading the party. What's going to happen? By the time the one that has the great perception goes, oh crap, something isn't right, it's too late. They have tripped the tripwire and boom. Now, still gives that player a chance to act and avoid the situation. And that's usually what I do. It's the, oh crap, I can't alert them in time. So I'm diving behind the trash cans or the trash bags behind here, or I'm diving down this hole that I see to get out of the way of the explosion that's coming my way. So again, mechanical traps present some great things, especially darkness, when darkness is around or really low light conditions. Unless people have dark vision or real clear vision back there, that's where you can give them negatives to their perception. And remember this, depending on how well the trap is crafted and hidden and the conditions of the day, so say it's a snowy day or a rainy day, it's going to make it much more difficult to see. So there's going to be modifiers that you as the GM want to add in. Now, some books tell you what that is. Here's my recommendation. I say the 2-4 rule. If the situation is kind of lightly obscuring, it's a -2 to their roll or their perception check roll that they gave you. It's a -4 if it's really bad conditions. So a blowing blizzard, a driving rain, I don't care how good you are, you will not perceive something in that. And I've been out in those conditions, and I'm not saying that we have to be realistic. It's a fantasy game or a sci-fi game, but let's be honest. The conditions do affect how perceptive somebody is. It can muffle things. It can make it harder to see. It can make it harder to discern. The fact that you're trying to keep things out of your eyes, all of this plays into your passive perception. So keep that in mind. Your players aren't always going to make their rolls because conditions won't always allow it, and you may not always allow it. And sometimes you as a GM have to discern where you want them to blow it too, because sometimes blowing it makes it more fun, because then you get a whole set of reactions that the party didn't normally do. Now, it could be a loose manhole cover. It could be a sinkhole that's in the city that people didn't know about, or maybe somebody tunneled up under there and set the trap for the party. Who knows the reason? You can lay that out in your thing. So a mechanical physical trap. Now, the second type is a magical trap. Now, hear me out here a little bit, because this can play a little bit more tricky to cover up. If a player has an active detect magic, or if it's kind of a, I don't know, I'm trying to think for even in a modern campaign, you're going to have a different type of sense. So if they have some sort of a magic sensing sense up, give them bonuses to finding it, because again, it's going to identify itself. So players walking in an alley, there's a glyph of warding there, but they have a detect magic up. Well, the detect magic, unless the glyph says that detect magic doesn't affect it and it still is hidden, it's going to give them a bonus because it's going to light up as a magical field of some sort. Evocation, enchantment, whatever it may be. Necromancy. It doesn't scream trap, and don't automatically say to your players, you see a glyph. You just see something magical, and the energies in this area are this. And until they get, the certain amount of rounds to where it specifically tells them the information, don't give it away. Take it little by little. Make it like a peeling back of the onion when they're experiencing that. So magical traps can be another type of trap that you set out. And again, why is it there? Well, maybe they're going somewhere that is heavily warded for a reason to keep certain things out. Maybe it's because they're following somebody and they don't want to be followed, and they've got some magic adept abilities and they put it up. Maybe it's somebody trying to just eliminate the party because they're becoming a bothersome nuisance to the overall scheme of life. Whatever the reason, have a justification behind it and jot that down, but make it there. Now, people say, well, okay, do you give experience for avoiding those things and disarming them? Of course you do. Of course you do. For perception, and if somebody discerns it, you benefit them on their ability. And you figure out a challenge rating of the trap. Okay. Now, for those of you that don't use CR, fine. Here's what I would say to you: use whatever to figure out what kind of experience they need. Okay. Some people don't use CRs. And so, like, maybe Open Legend doesn't use CRs, or Numenera doesn't use a CR, a challenge rating. What is a challenge rating? A challenge rating is basically a GM's way of saying how tough is the challenge compared to the party, and how much experience do I award them based on that. And there's a monetary value, or there's not monetary, but an XP value assigned to that. That's what you want to remember. And the nice thing about Pathfinder, and I love it, and people are like, "Oh my God, I hate the challenge rating." Someday I'll do it, go through with you guys and explain it to you to make it easy. Okay, as a GM. Alex Agunas has. Alex, please tell me how is it Agonis or Agunas? I'm just going to go with Agunas, and you can shoot me later. He does a great thing with Every Man's Game on his site, explaining challenge rating of Pathfinder, and it does. It goes with a party challenge level, as well as the character levels versus the challenge rating versus the XP, and how do they all factor together. And again, Pathfinder didn't make it easy, but there's a reason why. They take into account the many abilities the creatures have when factoring in the challenge rating. So, unlike D&D, which is very straightforward, there aren't many feats, there aren't many abilities and special things. It's easy to calculate it. Pathfinder, not as much. But you figure out the challenge rating of the trap and then assign an XP value to it. Don't go crazy, because that's going to be divided between the party. But have some fun with it. Let players want to use their skills and feats and other abilities they have, or magical powers or superpowers. Give them some awards for using those type of things. So that said, that's two types of challenges. Now, another type of trap there could be a encounter trap. Again, not saying it's combat, but it's just a trap that comes along that will lead to an encounter with an NPC or somebody that the party normally wouldn't run into, but may have some special information or a side adventure or a side outing or a side quest for them or a side job. Those kind of things are great too, because what that does, and I know GMs hate this because it says, well, I'm getting the party off the path I want them to follow. No, you aren't. You're giving yourself a little bit more fun by sending them this way, but you can always bring them back. It keeps them from just going down a railroaded path and allows them to get sidetracked away from the main purpose. And it may benefit the baddies, and it may hurt the party. And the party, by taking the quest, may put themselves in a worse situation. Think of it that way. And again, to complete that, and I love how, again, Pathfinder and Paizo does this. They always give you XPs for completing quests or figuring things out or other things, and a challenge rating. I think as GMs, we need to do that. Or reward your players. Now, again, if you don't use XP, then something else that rewards them, maybe a skill unlock, or a feat unlock, or a power unlock, or something else that will allow those players to have something that rewards them from doing that and completing that. So keep that in mind. Now, the fourth type of thing that you can use, and this I really enjoy, is the social combat trip up or trap. This is where you take them into a situation where physical combat would really just hurt the party. But winning a social battle, a battle of words, a battle of wits, a battle of whatever. So let me give you an example of that. If you guys have ever seen Sherlock Holmes, the new Sherlock Holmes with Benedict Cumberbatch, there's a place where he comes at a swimming pool upon Moriarty for the first time, and he and Moriarty interact. If you guys have seen this, this is a greatness. He's given choices in the situation, and he has to figure out how to maneuver Moriarty in such a way that people don't die. And he is in a social combat. Moriarty is attacking his ego. He's attacking his confidence. He's attacking his reason for being. He's trying to warp that sense of purpose. That's social combat. It is a baddie is trying to just outwit your player that's combating with them and trying to undermine their ability to get the job done. And that's where people really don't understand sometimes the aspects and fun of social combat. Sorry, I'm watching Mini GM to make sure she's out of trouble. But keep that in mind. As you go into a situation, social combat is not a bad thing. It can be quite fun and engaging for the whole party. And in fact, you can even get the physical combaters involved as well. You just have to think about what would make them rise to the occasion. Now, in a social combat, you really have to plan them out. If thens. If the party does this, then this. If the party succeeds this roll, then this. So put yourself a little, I hate to say a little chart with if thens, but like yes, no's type of chart where it goes different directions. So you want to do that for a reason, because then you can control that combat much more in a organized and fun way. If you don't think ahead, what's going to happen is you're going to lose the ground in that whole social combat, and it's all going to fall apart. So, you know, as I say it, the best way I can say it is this. Let me draw this out. So, if, and then this, fail, succeed, and then, so your if is there, okay, and that's the maybe the social combat situation one, okay, where you say attacks the party's sense of purpose and goes to undermine it. If they fail to save, then you go to the next one, and you have another combat. Now, I would say include 3 to 5 if-then outcomes to make the social combat drag on a little bit. And you, as the GM, have to improvise this. So make yourself some notes of how they're going to undermine and attack the party. That's why getting to know your party as you run them is really key. I know what buttons to push with Kal-El, our war priest. I know what buttons to push with Orin. I know what buttons to push with Rothar. I don't know as much with Thallo. I think I know his buttons. Painvin, he's a tough nut to crack, but there are some areas that I know I could attack him on because he's a social combat expert. Again, also the same thing to be said with Damien. Damien's the same way, tough to attack because he is the charmer. He is used to getting his way. So, but I do know a few of his weaknesses. So there are things, if you know the weaknesses of the party, that the baddies can watch to and exploit. Now, they're not automatically going to know this, but you can put them in there sometimes as an option. If the combat doesn't go well, the baddie resorts to this. And then boom. Huh? Oh, okay. So she's doing the Willy Wonka thing this morning. Mini GM, gotta love her. So then keep that in mind, is that with the social combats, map them out and really think them through. Utilize them. I'm telling you, they're going to brighten up your adventure. And I have used some situations like that where the bad person doesn't automatically present themselves as 100% bad and gives them the option to negotiate and takes them on a wild goose chase. And it's a lot of fun because the party allows it to happen and they think they're getting the upper hand by not having to combat. And then when they want to combat, that baddie just fades into the shadows to come back another time and be a pain in their rear end. Always a great thing, and always a lot of fun. And you charge things up. I know there are some GMs that I talk with that are using it quite well with the recurring bad guy or the recurring NPC that's a pain in the rear end. That's a beautiful thing. And if you do it well, kind of like the Moriarty in Sherlock Holmes, it really becomes a point of adrenaline surge when they hit in. So design your campaigns with those kind of traps, tricks, and pitfalls. So what are the four again? Physical, spell casting or occult energies, uh, the encounter with some sort of NPC or person to take them off the beaten track of where they're trying to go. And then the social combat situation where they do stay on track, but the social combat can derail them as well. So those are all types of traps that we don't think of, because when we think of traps, we think of physical, we think of spell, but we don't think of the other two as often. So keep that in mind when you're designing these things. Design a lot of these into your campaign. Really keep track of them. Keep track of where the party has done well and where their strengths are, and really play those things out for them. It makes the adventure so much more unique and enriched than just running a module or running an adventure path or running a homebrew designed encounter or city or whatever. You can do so much, and I wish I had more time. I'm going to keep this to 22 minutes. Um, but I'm going to tell you, really utilize these and add challenge ratings and XP to them to award them or not award them, depending on how the results come out, or how much to award them, depending on how the results come out. Thanks again, guys. It's great to see everybody. I hope all you ladies and gentlemen are having a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon.